And it's Crane and the Cowboy back with you. It is November 9th. You know what happened on November 8th. A lot of people still don't believe that Donald Trump actually is our president-elect. This is not one of them. This is the Cowboy Clairvoyant. Your crystal ball had Donald Trump win, and you almost had it state by state.
Well, you know, I was out there. And I actually, when you get out there on the campaign trail, you get reconnected with the voters. You know, it's one thing to see poll numbers and all this. And those people in Western Pennsylvania and Central Ohio, they were ready to go and they were ready to vote. And not only did they go, they brought their friends with them. And I think this is a terrific victory for the people of this country because they turned the pundits wrong, they turned the elites away, and they're finally saying, you know something, we're going to run things for a change.
Well, you and I talked about this, and I was with you. I couldn't disagree with what you were saying, but I just didn't think they had the numbers. I thought maybe a Philadelphia would cave Pennsylvania for Trump, or maybe even a Houston would do it for Texas.
I haven't seen all the numbers right from a breakdown of Pennsylvania. You're absolutely right. You know, if the Philadelphia suburbs and the city of Philadelphia goes, it pretty much wipes out the western part of the state as far as votes go. But I think there's a lot of people in those suburbs because I told you we were at a suburban country club, and those people were cheering for the same reasons that the person in rural Pennsylvania was cheering for. So I think that a lot of people just didn't tell the pollsters, and they went out and they voted for Donald Trump.
A lot of folks, as we come to you on this November 9th, are probably feeling a lot of chest pains now, a lot of worry. Republicans who were never Trump, media elites who were totally off the mark, and pollsters who are paid a lot of money to get these right who got it wrong.
And I think there's going to be a lot of casualties in that group that you just mentioned. I think the media is going to have a lot of casualties because their bias was just horrible this campaign, and they've been exposed. I think the WikiLeaks with John Podesta, it showed how Washington works. It's just a cozy relationship with everybody, and everybody gets what they want. And, you know, there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal that says, you know, Washington doesn't produce anything. They don't make iPhones, they don't make cars, they don't do anything.
They make trouble.
Yeah, they make trouble and hot air. That's all they do, and neither one of those are a marketable commodity. So I think the American people finally said, we have the pitchforks, and guess what? This time we actually made it to the village.
How big a factor was James Comey's Friday night letter release to Congress?
I think that helped to a certain extent. But I think, again, for a lot of the people who were Trump voters, that was already baked into the cake. They knew that she was a crook, and they wanted to do something. I think, quite frankly, a lot of voters this election, this was their one chance to vote against Barack Obama without him being on the ballot. And I think they did it with a vengeance.
I also think that it was the traditional Democratic coalition, blacks, Hispanics, liberal whites, didn't come out in force for Hillary. There really wasn't a reason to vote for her.
And she never gave a rationale for her candidacy. What was the message? You know, I'm going to support what Barack Obama does, and I'm going to bring the country back to the days when my husband was president. Her husband was president 25 years ago. That's a long time, and voters have gone through all this other stuff since with, you know, declining incomes, declining wages, declining jobs, all the other stuff. And they finally have had enough. Occasionally the American people do it, but just look at the historic nature of this. The whole media was already measuring the drapes for Hillary. I'm sure it was like, you know, Dewey defeats Truman. Yeah. So, this is a great victory for the American people.
Well, this is an election for Donald Trump, not a canonization. He is, by anybody's take, he's kind of a flawed human being, and the media is pointing out how he reacts with women, some shots he took at the disabled, his anti-Mexican fervor, his anti-Islamic fervor. But you know what? The one thing he did, he outworked her. He really outworked her.
That's right. He was doing 3-4 rallies a day, and he gained great strength from it. And the unsung hero of this, who will probably be a sung hero at some point in the very near future, is Kellyanne Conway.
Oh, yeah.
You can take where she took over.
Turned on a dime.
Yep, and she had a little rough spot with him. I'm sure they were getting to work with each other, but from then on, he trusted her. He said, you can do this, and she did, and she kept him on message. You know, this last week, what was it all about? The foundation and Comey, where you didn't hear any, all Trump was doing was out there, beating the bushes to make sure that his, literally beating the bushes, to make sure his voters turned out. So he was a worker.
Well, that is a good point when you said bushes. No play on words there, but For 20 years, the Bush family and the Clinton family dominated the White House.
Yeah.
That's over.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Imagine we crushed 2 dynasties in
One night.
one fell swoop, and that's good for America because that's ridiculous. Remember, you had Bush 41 for 4 years, then you had Clinton for 8. That's 12. Then you had, you're right, 20 years. Imagine if she'd have been, that'd have been like 28 or 24 years of 2 families. Even the Romanov dynasty died at one point.
Well, this was not a landslide by any means. Matter of fact, Hillary Clinton actually squawked by on the popular vote. But it's a message that America wants change. It almost happens naturally after one party's in there for 8 years. Happens a lot. Happened this time, but not a seasoned politician. We'll talk about what might be on Donald Trump's agenda, who some of the players might be in his administration in our next segment. I'm Ed Crane. That's the Cowboy, the Clairvoyant Cowboy.